everybody. How you doing? Well, that's good. Welcome to PHLY Flyers, presented by Bet365. My name is Bill Matz. I'm your director of fun and games this afternoon. Joining me live in the Xfinity studio, it is Philadelphia's #1 hockey beat reporter, Charlie O'Connor. What's up, Chuck?
Not too much. I had a nice, relaxing weekend. Covered a pretty entertaining Flyers game, at least in the second half of the Flyers game on
Last
Saturday.
35
you know,
minutes are
just
good.
sat at home on Saturday night, watched some television. Sunday, covered practice, and then went home and watched some football. Totally chill weekend.
Yeah, so what'd you think of that Nikki Glaser SNL monologue? No, we have our own controversies to deal with today, apparently. I had no idea. I kind of checked out after the game Saturday. Nice little 1 p.m. puck drop. Do post game with Petey. Charlie drops in for a few minutes. I don't even think it came up. This thing that we're gonna.
The Couturier comments definitely did not come up. The Michkov stuff came up in I believe, in terms of his ice time. And also him acknowledging that he had changed up his training list this past summer. That came up. But the Couturier stuff, I mean, I was there in the scrum, and I thought about putting it in my column. I thought it was mildly interesting. I did not think it was going to blow up to the degree it did, but it did, and now we're here to talk about it.
And we are here to talk about it, and it is the big deal, presented by Cherry Hill Jeep. Apparently, it's a huge effing deal, this thing that is going on with Sean Couturier's post-game comments on Saturday following that overtime loss to the Ottawa Senators that saw Matvei Michkov make the best play he's made all season.
He had a really good game.
En route to scoring his goal.
Yeah.
You said he played a really good game. Yeah. Both Petey and I were impressed. It seemed like the coach was complimentary. And quite honestly, I thought the captain was being complimentary. But a lot of people seem to have taken it the other way, and we're going to dive into that quite a bit today. Yeah. If you don't know what we're talking about, well, I don't know how. You've tuned into this show, which means...
honestly, if you don't know what we're talking about...
You're lucky.
You're really lucky. That means you've completely unplugged from all social media.
You live in such peace that I honestly, I very much envy you if you don't know the topic of today's show or where it stems from. But just in case, because we have to present the entire story here, let us play Sean Couturier's comments when asked by the media about Matvei Michkov.
Matvei was just saying that he was feeling maybe some pressure to score a goal, and the goal in Nashville was a little bit of a weight off of him. What have you guys done to try to keep him sort of on the level and keep his frustration levels low and confidence high as he's kind of worked through this?
Yeah, well, I think he's a great goal scorer and has a lot of skill. I think you just got to find a way to contribute to helping the team win in other ways when you're struggling. You're not always going to be scoring goals every game. So, I thought I've seen improvement in the way he's, not cheating as much and being on the right side of pucks. And, I'm sure it's a little different for him, but, if he sticks to playing, more the right way, I think it's going to be better for the team overall.
Have you sensed a weight off his shoulders a little bit after scoring that goal in Nashville and then tonight as well?
I think so. I think you can tell tonight he was trying to make a lot of plays with the puck, holding on to the puck. I think he's definitely feeling good about himself.
So I guess it's the implication that he wasn't playing the right way to start the season.
Well, and also the fact that he points out that he's not cheating as much. So by saying he's not cheating as much, it's basically saying that he has cheated in the past.
Sure.
It's bringing up negativity. And it is important to note that it's not, while the interview was the primary thing that was discussed, this came on the heels of social media working themselves up over two other things. One thing being this struck me as very weird, like significantly weirder than the interview, but people convinced themselves that the team didn't sufficiently celebrate Michkov's goal
that was a big
in the
deal.
corner.
Yep.
So that was already a thing.
Yeah, I did see
then
that.
there was a clip, which this is actually this was somewhat noteworthy. There's a clip in overtime where Michkov and Couturier are on the ice together. Michkov looks like he's about to enter the zone, then he kind of goes a little east-west. Couturier enters the zone first, and they get offsides. And then the camera shows Couturier going back to the bench, kind of like looks straight ahead, shakes his head. And then I believe Brian Boucher then mentions like Couturier doesn't seem happy with Michkov. So there was already, like, the waters were already primed for this. And then the interview hits. And it just seemed like everything boiled over from there in terms of the way it was interpreted.
Can I just start with the first time I ever had like actual this is what you do and don't do coaching in hockey was my freshman year at St. Augustine. And St. Augustine had a very, very good hockey program. And the coach there said, you don't make a move within 3 feet of the blue line because everyone else thinks you're going in the zone. We're going to go offside every time. That is very much a coaching point that I have heard repeated over and over again. That's just a little thing. They would be annoyed about that. Like, yes, it's overtime. We have this chance to enter the zone. It's all about possession, and now we have to start over, and I'm coming off the ice. We had a chance to win the game. That's just normal teammate stuff. Guys get annoyed with each other on the ice because they all want to make plays. Like, that I just think is completely normal and nothing to get worked up about.
It's more just being a competitive person who's frustrated. I wouldn't be surprised if he was frustrated a little bit with Michkov. Wouldn't be surprised if he was frustrated a little bit with himself. Frustrated just with the fact that they hadn't yet scored.
The other thing that I think, like, when we try to read guys' body language when they're on the bench, you don't know what they're thinking about. You don't know what the thing was said 2 seconds before that was. There are these quick clips, and then there's no context, and then we move on, and we think about them well after they're done. I bet you Sean Couturier, by the time he got home that night, had no memory of Mish even going offside. Like, you know, it's just like, this is what happens throughout the course of a game. So that stuff, I kind of just think is silly. The idea that they didn't celebrate enough, like, what? They're still losing.
That was my thought. That was my thought too.
They're still losing the game
because people compared the celebration to the celebration for the Drysdale goal, and the difference was that was the game tying goal. You know, after they've been pushing,
they've been pushing for half an hour.
They've been dominating the entire game, and they finally break through. There's going to be a release, whereas the Michkov goal was more of like a relief. Like, oh, thank God somebody finally did something because we've been playing like crap the entire game. That happens, I think, more often than people might realize when like those type of goals just don't get celebrated that much. Now, is it possible that like guys were a little bit like, oh God, like he did it all himself? I don't know, maybe, but I think it's unlikely. I think that was more just a time and place thing, but that primed the waters for the interview to be interpreted the way it was interpreted. And look, I think it raises an interesting question, which is worth discussing, which is there tension between Matvei Michkov and the rest of the team? Because if you remember, this was a concern of a lot of ours going into last year, because there were all the rumors. You know, obviously the Montreal Canadiens organization and fan base did a lot to perpetuating these rumors, but there were rumors that he was maybe not the best teammate, especially in Sochi. There were rumors about that. So we all were, and by we, I mean like people in the media, we were all very attentive to like, ooh, is there any chance that like Michkov is going to rub his teammates the wrong way? And everything last season, by talking with guys on and off the record, was like, nah, he seems like a great guy. Obviously, he was playing great hockey. That helps when a guy's like helping your team win games regularly by scoring a ton of goals and points. But the read that everyone got was like, nah, everything seems great. Now it's kind of coming back into the fold, and because of the rumors in the past, it's worth addressing whether there's tension between Couturier, the captain, and Michkov, the player, but also the team as a whole and Michkov, the player. And my answer is maybe a little bit, but I really don't think it's a major issue. Like, I just don't think it's a major problem. Because I watched that interview. It was in the scrum with Couturier. And it raised my eyebrows a little bit. I'm like, oh, it's a little bit, you know, he's maybe going a little bit further than I would have expected him to go in terms of like not just saying boring like, yeah, we're behind him 100%. He'll get through this. Like that would have been the cookie cutter boilerplate answer. He didn't really give that. So I raised my eyebrows a little bit. As I said, I thought about putting it in my post-game column. Ultimately, it was like a 2,700 word column anyway, so there wasn't enough room to throw it in there. So I decided not to. But going into Sunday's practice, I was like, I'm going to keep an eye. I want to see if maybe, this was even before things really blew up on social media. I was like, I'm going to keep an eye on the interactions with him and his teammates and see if there's anything that raises my eyebrows. And in the locker room, and we're just waiting for players to come in, and Michkov and Couturier walk in like one right after another, and they're like in mid-conversation about like a play and a read, and they're very clearly like interacting in a positive way. And I came out of that like, oh, okay, I guess things are fine. And then 4 hours later, I see that social media has exploded. And that's why I think from my perspective, I was like, wow, this seems a bit much.
And that's why, to me, this is like, all right, maybe he said more than we're used to from hockey players, and that was the big deal presented by Cherry Hill Jeep. The whole show is the big deal today, but yeah, I don't know if we're allowed to make like a one sponsored segment 60 minutes long. So that was the big deal by Cherry Hill Jeep. But this is why I wanted to get to some other clips that I found from post game on Saturday and from, I guess they practiced yesterday. It just feels to me like, all right, maybe it was a little more than we're used to, but none of that is like anything that isn't public knowledge. We all know that Matvei Michkov can cheat for offense sometimes. In fact, the coach last year told him to do it in the right spots. Right. It's about picking your spots.
It's absolutely about picking your spots.
And sometimes I think the word cheat gets misinterpreted, like when Giroux or Mike Richards would talk about how Sidney Crosby cheats on faceoffs, and we'd be like, see, he's a freaking cheater. And it's like, no, it's just getting an advantage. Yeah. This is what the game is. Yeah. Michkov sometimes shirks his defensive responsibilities in hopes that he can create a scoring chance. Mm-hmm. That is what all great offensive players do.
Well, not all, but a lot of great wingers.
Unless they are, a lot of great wingers. All great wingers and most players, unless they are like amazing two-way players who are, unless they're the ones who are making the defensive play that will lead to offense. Yeah. And sure, Michkov could do more of that, but ultimately, like,
that's not his role.
His play on the plus side of the red line is what's going to define his career in the NHL, not on the other side. Yeah. I just like, just because you say he cheats for offense doesn't mean he's like a bad player. Like, that is not in itself like dissing him in some way to me.
It doesn't have to be, but it can.
In this context, saying like if he's not cheating as much, okay, he was doing it too much. That's saying he was doing this more than is acceptable.
Right.
We all know that's true, though. Everyone in the world who's watched this kid play for 94, 95 games now knows that that is the truth. Nothing he said there is untrue. And the thing about finding ways to contribute when you're not scoring. Also the truth. And I know that's the truth because no one has a problem with it when I say it about Owen Tippett regularly.
It's really true.
In fact, I've been doing a thing where I compare his slumps to Wayne Simmons' slumps, and I think we got like a super chat that was like, stop comparing the two. And I'm like, but the comparison is Simmons did other things and Tippett doesn't. Like, I'm comparing them in order to contrast them. Yeah. Like, no one has a problem when you say it about the guy they don't love. Right. And I'm just like, we saw it last year. There's 27 games or whatever it was in the middle of the season where he wasn't scoring, and it was like, did Matvei Michkov play tonight? The first 27 and the last 25 or 28 or whatever it was, amazing. The times in the middle when he scored 7 points, he stunk, and we all said it. Like, I have something stuck in my tooth. That's why I'm talking like this. I
can tap in for you whenever you want.
I'm just baffled a little bit by the interpretation, but the words themselves I didn't take as like, it's mostly, he didn't start the season well. Does anyone think he played well in the first 12 or so games?
No, not even him.
Not him. Not a single person.
Not even
His mom probably doesn't think he played well in the first 12 games. Maybe. Maybe. You know, that's moms. But like outside of that, there's no one he's saying it's improving. And now he's scoring, and that's good because he's doing the other stuff that will lead to more scoring opportunities. Yeah. To me, this was an assessment of we're headed in the right direction.
Yeah, and I think this goes back to, again, the concern that people have. I do think there are good faith people in this conversation. I think there are some bad faith people in this conversation as well, and we'll get to them later in the show. But the good faith people in the conversation are concerned. They're concerned. They're like, oh no, is it happening again? Is Michkov, is there a rift in the room? Does Couturier,
is it Lindros?
Does the captain hate the kid? But it does seem like, and look, I'm not in the brain of Sean Couturier. I'm not in the brain of Matvei Michkov. I'm not in the room all the time. So I could be wrong in my interpretation of the Couturier-Michkov relationship. I could be wrong. But my interpretation, both in terms of what I've heard them say on the record, what I've heard when I talk to people behind closed doors, and what I've seen behind closed doors. As I mentioned, like, one reason why I kind of was like, oh, it seems like everything's fine is because I watched them talk behind closed doors. Everything I've heard is that the relationship is positive, and that if anything, like, Michkov appreciates the bluntness that Couturier brings to the table when talking about what he should and shouldn't do. And this is where I want to get into this clip, because this is an interesting clip. And again, you're free to be like, oh, it's just Tocchet blowing smoke. He's just doing PR for the team.
The context of it had nothing to do with, this was like a totally different question than, are the captain and the superstar mad at each other?
Yeah.
Like, this was just simply about coaching Matvei Michkov, and we have this clip.
And it lines up with what I've heard from every other, like, what I've seen with my eyes and what I've heard. It lines up with all of that. So for me, it's very easy to listen to Rick Tocchet say this and believe him rather than just dismiss it as PR.
So go ahead, Brian.
With Michkov, when you see players talking to him like Sean or Travis on the bench, how much, when other players see that, they're watching to see that, not just the coach telling him, you're doing this wrong, you're doing that wrong, but rather they're kind of showing him what he's doing.
Yeah, I mean, there's a language barrier too. Like, and poor guy, when somebody's talking, it's usually to correct a mistake, right? So, like, it's hard sometimes. So, I think when it comes from Coots, like, we were just out there today, and I was with him on the board about something about, I forget what it was. Coots came right over, and then right away, Meach was looking at Coots. I can tell that Meach really respects Coots. There's something there, so I think that's valuable. And Coots has got a good way of delivering a message. It was actually, he thought he should have supported Coots where he should have stayed in the slot before the goal. He shouldn't have took off, right? Which is fine, right? And I think that's important that those guys talk it out. And now he's, oh yeah, now I get it now. So it's good to have players that be like almost like an extension of the coaching staff, especially when you have a language barrier.
Couturier, you mentioned today about it's important to be patient with him, that he's 20, he's from Russia. Do you ever find yourself reminding yourself, okay, this is a process with him?
Yeah, I think, we got to understand where he played in Russia, and, what was he taught? And from what I was told, it's do what you want out there. I think he knows now he's come into a situation where it's a team game. It's not an individual game. Like, there's individual moments, but it's a team game. It's always will be. And I think, he's getting it. I mean, he's playing better every game. He looked like he had a really good practice day. Like, it's the fastest I've seen him last game and this game, even in practice day. So, he's getting his legs. He's getting his stuff in the gym. I think they're doing a little skate with him now. It's part of the process, and we can't be scared of it.
So I have two reactions, and I want you to then get back to the Couturier stuff. Okay. Two things from me are, one, we've talked about how the team is adjusting to having coaching in the offensive zone for the first time in 3.5 years or whatever.
Yeah.
And the idea that, okay, in Russia, especially in Sochi, and Sochi is one of those teams that's basically like you get lined up to get knocked down by one of the teams that actually has money and good players. Like, he was on loan to Sochi, and that was his team's job.
Yeah.
He was probably not the best teammate because no one there was close to his level.
And a lot of guys on that team, from what I've understood, were not really giving their best effort.
Yeah,
that drove him nuts.
They're just collecting a paycheck, like they're the Washington Generals.
Exactly.
And also, okay, so you have that. That's where he's coming from, where we know the KHL's more open. Some of the rinks are bigger ice, but it's just more that open European style.
Play.
And it's more individual. And then Michkov gets here. John Tortorella opened up the offense the year before in preparation for his arrival and basically said, I don't know how to score goals. You do, so you figure out how this. So you figure out how this team is ever going to score a goal ever, and he did pretty well for a rookie. Now there's a coach, and there's a coach who wants certain things done a certain way, and we're all learning, and that's that. Also, the language barrier thing. Tocchet has brought this up multiple times. Watching Michkov's post-game scrum the other night, he almost answered a couple questions before the interpreter and then was like, let me just wait. I'm going to stop myself. He understands. Maybe he's not polished, but he knows way more English than I know Russian. I'll tell you that.
Oh, yeah. Well, easy. And he does. He definitely.
I know one word.
I think what it boils down to is, while Michkov definitely understands
Yeah.
pretty well. Not everything, and there's definitely some barrier there, but he understands pretty well. He's not that great at speaking it yet, and it's a fair point what Tocchet made, is that because of that, a lot of guys aren't necessarily coming to him to talk with him, knowing that it's not going to really be a two-way conversation in the classic sense, unless they have something to like a bone to pick
Point
with
out
him.
a mistake,
Yeah,
yeah.
which does make it a little tough, because it's like, well, you're never coming to be being like, great play, man. And you're like, tell me how you did that, because like, how's Michkov going to be able to describe in English what he was thinking on that really cool goal? He's going to want to say it in Russian,
Yeah.
and they're not going to understand him. So most of the one-on-one conversations are coming from a place of like, you need to do better, which makes it tough on the kid. I hope that the Flyers are doing a good job of handling that on an individual player basis. But to me, the big takeaway coming out of that was the point Tocchet made about, in his view, and again, if you want to believe that Rick Tocchet is lying to your face and this is all, organizational public relations and they're blowing smoke and they're lying to you, I guess you can. Like, you're allowed to fan the way you want to fan. But Rick Tocchet was brought here in large part because he was a player and knows how to recognize player relationships and what players, what it means when a player is looking at another player in this way or looking at a play in this way. And if he's saying that, I watch Matvei Michkov interact with Sean Couturier and I can tell that Michkov really respects Couturier, I'm inclined to believe him. I don't think he would lie on that front. Especially if the reality is Michkov and Couturier can't stand each other. You know what I mean? If it's...
Then say oh man, him and Trevor are just really, they have such good chemistry.
If that's the reality, and you know that, and you're hiding this, I don't think you would then go up in front of the media and say the exact opposite thing.
At no point was...
Because eventually you're probably going to get found out to be a liar.
At no point was Tocchet ever nah, man, JT, Elias, they actually went out to dinner last night, and their wives are best friends.
Exactly.
And this is all just
it's
made
not like
up.
he tried to blow smoke with that. He was they were trying to keep that under us, and Tocchet was the one who was like, yeah, not everybody has to love each other.
Yeah, it was very out in the open.
Tocchet was kind of the one who revealed that.
Yeah, we all know. Tocchet was we all know what's going on here, right? All right, we have 3 breaks today, and I'm already late for the first one, so this is going to be a game of catch-up, but let's take our first commercial. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Bet365 is one of the pioneers of live in-game betting. Over 78 different sports to get some action on while the game is live. Today, I got to tell you about that early payout offer, because I love the early payout offer. If your team gains a 3-goal lead in an NHL game, you win. That's that. Your money line bets are marked as winners, and you get an instant payout, and your parlay selections get that little check, and you move on to the next leg, because whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. We have breaking news from Bet365. New customers now get $300 in bonus bets when you bet just $5, win or lose. All you got to do is sign up, use code PHLY365, deposit $10 and place a bet for $5 to get $300 in bonus bets, whether your initial bet wins or loses. Bonus bets can be used on the spread, totals, player props, futures, and more. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Must be 21 or older and physically located in PA. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call 1-800-GAMBLER. Now I got to tell you about Cherry Hill Jeep, baby, because if you're looking for a Jeep or Ram truck, there's only one dealership in South Jersey who has been the market leader since 1967. It's our friends at Cherry Hill Jeep and cherryhilljeep.com. They've got you covered on the best selection, but more importantly, the best prices. You can slide into a 2025 Jeep Wrangler this month for $289 a month. Every Wrangler delivers strong drivetrains, innovative engineering, and quality components that underpin this icon's legendary heritage. So stop in today and tell them PHLY sent you and receive $1,000 off any new car and an additional $2,000 for your trade-in. I know people buy Jeeps and Ram trucks elsewhere. I just don't know why. Drive home in your new Jeep or Ram truck today, just minutes from all bridges, or available online 24/7 at cherryhilljeep.com.
All right, now let's get back into this, because there's so much more to break down here. But the other thing that I do want to talk about, because again, I don't want to completely dismiss everything, because I do think there are
interesting components.
I think it's overblown. I do think that this was overblown by social media, but I do think there are some parts of it where it's just you got to keep an eye on it. The idea of okay, well, how is Michkov fitting into the room? I don't get the sense that he's part of the crew. I really don't. What I had heard was that, he largely kept to the Russian guys last year. He wasn't really integrating himself. And I don't think he was like standoffish. It was just like, well, I only really speak Russian, so I'm going to hang out with like Yegor Zamula and I'm Fedotov when I want to hang out with people. I heard that. And I do think, and I've heard this a couple times, I do think probably the Flyers leadership group, I'm not necessarily even talking about Couturier. I'm talking about more like the social leadership group. They could probably do a better job of including him in things, and maybe that's something that will develop over time. The more that he gets the hang of English and the more that he can, because one thing about Michkov, and this is something that like at some point this is going to be more apparent. It's already a little apparent, but it's going to become more apparent over the next few years as he actually starts to master the English language. He's funny. Like, he's legitimately funny, and I do think he is going to ultimately become a very fun guy to interview, and I think a very fun guy to have on the team because he's got this, like, dry sense of humor, and he's, like, a legitimately funny guy. At this stage, though, I do not think he is, like, socially in the crew in the way that I think we wish he was, and the way I think maybe some people in the Flyers hierarchy wish he was, but I don't think that means they hate him. I think that's going way too far. I don't think he's hated or actively disliked. I just don't think he's like part of the group in the way that like Trevor Zegras just jumped in and immediately became part of the group.
And Trevor Zegras, like part of the group, he was already like
buds
had
with
degrees of
Yeah,
separation.
exactly.
Like he's already friends with a former teammate of one, a former, at the US program
USNDP,
with the other. Like there's just other ways that they've known each other for like almost, a decade now. I'm trying to, there's a way I can tell this story. You and I were somewhere where we saw a group of players that were or are on the team. I'm not going to say which is which, but it was a place in which I was a little surprised not to see Michkov with them, given he could have been. That was kind of a surprise to me, but also like it also wasn't 22 guys and he was the only one not there,
right.
But it would be, you would think maybe that situation, but that's every team. Like every team has cliques and crews and maybe he's just not in on it yet. And things are a little different, in this country, maybe, in terms of where you can and can't go. I can't imagine he's getting carded at Xfinity.
I can't imagine he's never been to a bar in the United States before.
It would surprise me.
It would be surprising.
It would surprise me if he was to
technically
walk in.
not 21,
if
but
he was to
let's be
walk
honest
into
here.
Stateside Live, it would surprise me if they were like,
well,
maybe not.
Honestly, I feel like going to that big of a place
Because
they
know.
might kick him out.
Because they know.
But if he goes to like a dive bar, they don't care.
Well, regardless, I don't know if he necessarily has to be in the social crew or if it's like he just isn't, but it's not like he's excluded. It's just maybe he's a different kind of guy.
And I think he can get there. And I think that the Flyers should make sure that he gets there because he is so important. This then goes into the part of it where I do think maybe there's a little bit of something there. Again, not huge, but a little bit of something there. It wouldn't shock me if the players, particularly some of the vets, are a little bit annoyed that this kid who had the great rookie season, who is being pumped up as the savior of the organization, not necessarily by the organization, but certainly by the fans. And they hear this stuff. Obviously, they're on social media, even if they just lurk, they hear it. This guy who's like the next big thing shows up to camp not in the best of shape. That very well might have annoyed some of them. So do I think it made them hate him? No. But it may have rubbed them the wrong way a little bit. Like, oh man, I was working my tail off this summer. And then, by Michkov's own admission, he didn't go on the ice for 4 months. Now, that doesn't mean Michkov didn't do anything this summer, but I've heard from enough people, connected with the team, that it is real that he did not come to camp in great shape. That is real. Now, I do not necessarily think that means he is lazy. I do not think that means that he's going to be a bust. But I do think it means that, whether you want to say it's the ankle, whether you want to say that he changed up his regimen and it was the incorrect change, or whether first summer as a pro, he just kicked back a little bit. Like, he didn't show up to camp in the greatest of shape, and I think that at least contributed to the slow start.
He's a legitimately rich person now. We said that last week, and he wanted to have a good time. I understand that. I would not have shown up to camp in good shape. I might not have shown up to camp at all, quite honestly. But I think there are reasons for, like you said, I don't think anyone hates the guy because of this.
No, I don't think so
But
either.
the visual of the GM and president carrying his stuff through the airport, I can see how in a certain situation, maybe a player who didn't arrive with the fanfare, but has been as productive, and this is just me guessing, yeah, man, that would maybe rub me the wrong way. Like, I don't know, if I'm Sean Couturier, it's like, yeah, I've been here like 15 years. Scored a hat trick on a torn MCL for this team. No one ever carried my stuff to the airport. Like, it seems like those two actually have a decent relationship. Like, if anyone we could reference, it's like, they play together a lot. He goes to him. Like, it's kind of almost a mentorship. Like, he's a good captain.
Seems like
he's a good captain to Michkov. I'm just saying, like, maybe those sorts of things could rub players the wrong way. And I don't think that's necessarily the end of the world.
I don't think it's the end of the world either, but I could see how, at least in the month and a half of this season,
the beginning of this season,
why some players could be a little bit like, oh man,
oh, so the Savior showed up out of shape, and now he's not scoring, and all of a sudden, oh, he's not untouchable the way we all thought.
And then
those things are said.
And then you have in tape study sessions, when in every session, when Rick Tocchet and his assistants are going through tape, and every single session they're pointing to another time where Michkov blasted the zone, when the Flyers didn't have possession of the puck in the defensive zone, and you're seeing that 2-3 times a week, I can see how some players might just be grumbling a little bit. Again, I don't think they hate him, but I could see where the grumbling may come from. And this, again, plays into a little bit of the other aspect that kind of got brushed aside because of the Couturier stuff, the ice time stuff. Because I specifically asked Rick Tocchet after, because it's a reasonable question to ask. Michkov, in the beginning of the year, was not playing well. And we said it on the show multiple times. It's hard to be too critical about his low ice time totals when he ain't playing well. Well, last game, he played well. Especially in the second half of the game, he was all over the ice. He was skating well. Rick Tocchet, after the game, straight up said, thinks it's the best he's seen him skate all year. So the logical question is, yeah, but you gave him 14 minutes. Like, at what point do you start considering giving him more minutes? And this was Tocchet's answer.
Yeah, the 25-second one.
Rick, going back to Matvei for a second, obviously started out the year struggling, and in turn, he's not getting a ton of ice time.
Yeah.
I guess from your perspective as a coach, like, at what point do you start looking to get him out there for more shifts?
Yeah, sure. We start earning it, you get it. We had, it's the same thing. We had 4 penalties, right? He's not on the first. He's not starting right now on the first power play, so then that's 2 or 3 extra minutes. So he'll get his time.
Now, I do think to start, I want to point this out because I pointed this out in my column. Or I don't think I pointed it on my column, but I will point it out now if I didn't point it on my column. The stuff about the power play stuff, like, that's BS. And that's total Tocchet evading. It is, because Trevor Zegras isn't on penalty kill, and he's on a power play, and he's still getting 20-plus minutes a night. That's evasion. But
that part, I feel like he kind of misspoke a little.
Maybe.
Talking, like, he conflated we're taking penalties, but also the power play unit that's going isn't the one he's on.
Which is true.
I feel like he combined those two things.
That's fair.
That's just how I heard it.
But his answer, really, if you boil it down to, is basically, if he earns it, he's going to get more minutes. And I think what he's getting at here, and this plays into what I was saying about the whole, like, he didn't show up to camp in the best shape, and he's cheating a lot. For fans of the team, most of whom, if not all, and it's not all, because there are some people who just for some reason just dislike the kid, which I think is insane. Most people love Michkov. And everyone who loves Michkov watched him last year, and they watched him be great all of last year. And they're looking at it as, okay, we've now seen like 4 periods of Michkov looking like that guy again. All right, clock's
18
ticking.
minutes.
18 minutes, get him back out there. And I think what's really going on here with the ice time is, for Tocchet, he's looking at it as, everybody in that room saw that Michkov wasn't in the greatest of shape to start the year. Everyone in that room has been in the video sessions, knowing that we've been critical of him and trying to get him to change his thing. We're not just going to bump him back up the lineup after one really good game. It's going to take some time, and he'll get there. And look, if he doesn't get there and it's mid-December and he's scoring point per game and he's still getting 15 minutes a night, me and you will be on the show being critical of it.
Yes.
But I think what Tocchet was getting at with that answer was that, even though I totally understand why fans are like, yo, give me more Michkov. He's back. Get him on the ice. There are other factors that Tocchet has to take into account where he's like, all right, he's got to earn it, and earning it isn't just having 2 really, because like everyone else, Michkov was bad in the first period on Saturday. He was great in the second and third. It's going to take more than just 2 really good periods to get Michkov the ice time that everyone wants him to have in the fan base.
And I think there is, and I think this is a fair criticism of Tocchet here, but it is, I understand it as human nature. The first impression thing. You know who didn't watch every shift of Matvei Michkov last year?
Yeah.
Rick Tocchet.
It's true.
So when Owen Tippett comes out and scores 5 goals in the first 6 games and has, makes a really, really good first impression, all right, this is a guy we can depend on. In those first 6 games, when he scored the 5 goals, he averaged 17:30 of ice time.
This is Tippett.
Owen Tippett.
Okay.
In the 9 games since, in which he has no goals and 1 assist, he's averaged 17:27 of ice time.
Yeah, he should not be getting this many minutes. It's
think-
obvious he's not playing that well right now.
I do think this is fair that, like, maybe these
we should
first
flip-flop these
impressions,
a little bit,
not
yeah.
even flip-flop, but just like maybe these first impressions have lasted a little longer than necessary.
Maybe.
And if we're going to talk about guys who maybe don't contribute a ton when they're not scoring, like, that's a fair assessment of one. It's also a fair assessment of the other.
Yeah.
Like, and maybe it's not being applied equally here. That I do believe is a fair
It's absolutely a fair
criticism of Rick Tocchet.
Yeah. But again, it goes back to the whole thing of, like, with Tippett, we as observers and or fans of the team are drawing on our years of him being inconsistent.
Yes.
So for us, it's like, oh, that was just another one of his hot streaks. Now he's on a cold streak, so cut his minutes. For Tocchet, it's like, oh, I saw this guy. He was incredible. I'm not going to pull back on his minutes. We're going to get him back to where he was 6 games ago.
No, exactly. And that makes sense. It makes sense to me, and it makes sense why fans would feel differently.
Of course.
And,
Makes perfect sense.
That's just one of those things. All right, let's get this show back on track. We'll come back with more of the never-ending saga of Matvei Michkov. But first, I got to tell you about Monarch. Listen, I've been telling you about Monarch for months now, but the thing about Monarch is it's just not another finance app. It's just not another budgeting app. Monarch is made for people with busy lives because it takes care of all the heavy lifting for you. You'll never have to just set up another spreadsheet yourself again. Monarch, you plug in your accounts, you link all your data, and suddenly you are almost overwhelmed with the amount of smart digital categorization and all the data it's able to show you, the ways in which you could be saving better, in which you could be spending less, ways to maximize your income. And that's why it was named the best budgeting app of 2025 by the Wall Street Journal. It's named in CNBC's top fintech companies in the world, and a passionate Reddit community of over 34,000 users shape how the product is developed. Listen, money can break couples up. Money can bring people together as well. Make sure you're not ruining your life. Make sure you get stuff together and use Monarch. Don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Slip through the cracks. Use code PHLY at monarch.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarch.com with code PHLY. While we're here, I gotta tell you about Ace Hardware, baby, because when the weather turns chilly, the last thing you need is another home project added to the list. And Ace Hardware Home Services, they bring trusted local pros right to your door to help you get your home ready for the colder months. From heating tune-ups and plumbing fixes to generators and emergency repairs, their experts handle it all. No guesswork, no stress, just the local pro to get the job done right, and your satisfaction is always guaranteed. Find the help you need for your next home project at acehardwarehomeservices.com.
All right, now let's get into something I alluded to earlier, but we now can really dive into, because this was the big piece of news coming out of those Saturday scrums, and this was directly from Matvei Michkov's mouth, which is more details about the whole conditioning summer thing. And Michkov, really, he wasn't even really asked about it. He volunteered it. Like, he volunteered that this was part of the reason why he didn't get off to a great start in his mind. And it was a pretty, I wouldn't say stunning, but it was an eye-opening revelation.
I don't know how well you can hear the question, so just to set it up, Mish has just asked, how are you feeling physically? And he gives us this.
How do you feel physically compared to the start of the season?
Физически как себя чувствуешь по отношению к началу сезона?
Честно, первый раз в жизни отдыхал 4 месяца.
Truly, first time I was rested for the 4 months.
Без хоккея.
No hockey.
Тренировки это все равно не то.
Training is not the same.
Поэтому где-то в начале сезона потерял какую-то концентрацию.
In the beginning of the season, lost concentration.
Но с каждой игрой все лучше и лучше себя чувствую.
With every game, feeling better and better.
Yeah, so he basically says, for the first time ever, he basically wasn't on the ice for 4 months. Now, again, I do not think this means that he did nothing for 4 months. I suspect, I don't know this for a fact, I suspect he spent a fair amount of time in the gym, but he didn't do much on the ice for 4 months. It was basically no hockey, first time he'd ever done it, and it didn't work. It's pretty clear that it didn't work. Michkov mentions that his concentration was off at the beginning of the year. I wouldn't be surprised if that's certainly part of it, is that, he was just a little rusty because wasn't on the ice doing his usual thing the way he normally has in his career. Also, as I've noted, I've heard from enough team people that, he didn't come to camp in great shape. They measure fitness when they show up. Wasn't in the best of shape. Now, I want to be clear about this because this is where I get frustrated where there can't be any nuance here. I don't think this is that big of a deal. It does not mean that Michkov is lazy. It does not mean that he sucks. It does not mean that he's a bust. It means that a 20-year-old made some not ideal decisions about how to train in the summer. And that's not the end of the world. But it is a reality that he wasn't in the best of condition starting camp and starting the season. That is real, and that's a factor in this that can't be completely... You can't just dismiss it. You can't just pretend it's not true. I'm confident that it's true that he wasn't in the best of shape to start the season. I'm also confident watching him now that he's getting into better shape, because if you come into camp carrying a little bit extra weight, you know how you lose weight? By working really hard and practicing in games. Like, that's something that happens all the time where guys will talk about it. They're like, oh, I started the season at 190, and by the end of the year, I was at 178. Wouldn't be surprised if that's kind of what's happening with Michkov now, and that's why he looks so much quicker than he did at the start of the year. But again, you can say that and not have that be positioned as like, I think Michkov sucks and he's lazy and he's a problem. I just think that kid's 20 years old, and as long as this is not something that recurs, it's really no big deal. It's just an explanation as to why maybe he didn't get off to the best start this year.
No, yeah, and listen, it's, again, not ideal. You wish he just hit the summer hard, came back, and he was scoring like Mac on Celebrini, and we are all good. But that's not the way it went, and we have to live in what is happening now. It was one of the Tocchet clips. It might have been the one we played, might have been one of the ones we didn't. But he's like, yeah, we skated today. He looked great. And then they're in the gym. Then they're going to skate him again. Like, the team and he are actively working to rectify the situation. And based on the results of what we've seen the last few games, it's coming around.
Yeah.
We said at the time, coach, was it Tocchet? It was somebody. I think you asked. And it was like, yeah, month and a half, maybe. It takes guys who maybe have to play themselves into shape to start the year. Well, we're a month in. That's where we are now. Their first game was the 9th. Today is November 10th. Okay.
Yeah.
We're starting
we're getting there.
We're starting to get into that range, and all of a sudden, Michkov looks like a better player, so it makes sense. You'd like him to start fast the way he did last year. Clearly, there were issues this summer, but they are being put behind him.
Yeah, exactly. And this is another thing that I do want to point out, because while Couturier took the bulk of the heat on this, I think Rick Tocchet caught more than a few strays in this Tocchet's been critical of Michkov. And in fairness, he has. He's I think
he's been straightforward. I don't know if I'd necessarily call it critical.
Okay, well, he's made critiques of Michkov. Now, a lot of the critiques were pretty much the exact same stuff that Couturier said. I'm wonder where Couturier is getting it from. He's, as the captain, he's really only echoing what Tocchet's saying publicly as well. It's not like he went further than what Rick Tocchet said. But one point I want to make is that it's worth remembering here about Rick Tocchet's handling of Matvei Michkov, that when all this stuff first came out about the conditioning, when it was on Spit and Chicklets, Rick Tocchet went up there and he was like, yeah, it was all the ankle injury. Do I think it was all the ankle injury? No. I sure don't. No. But you know what I think Rick Tocchet was doing? He was protecting his player. And I have a feeling that Matvei Michkov appreciates that a lot more than people realize.
Well, it's something I heard in terms of, like you just said, Coots basically saying, and like I said, this is all stuff that is public. Nothing Coots said is something we don't know. Yeah. A lot of people have drawn the comparison to the Miller situation, and it was like Tocchet basically was like, I don't know, these two got to sort it out. They're adults. Whereas we all kind of know, though, which player Tocchet probably appreciated more.
Yeah, I have a feeling.
The passionate meanie.
I got a hunch.
The passionate meanie or the soft European. Who did Tocchet like more? And they think maybe it was Tocchet pushing JT Miller to kind of be an a-hole in public about the situation, maybe. And they think this is that. And I just think the situations are vastly different. Because I don't think these two don't like each other.
Yeah.
Like,
I don't
get that impression. You are much closer than I am.
I don't get that sense either.
But just watching them, I don't know, they're line mates. They have been for the bulk of Michkov's career. Seems to be going all right for both of them. Coots is putting up points at a rate he hasn't in years, and Michkov is pretty good to start his career. I don't know. They seem to talk quite a bit on the bench and in practice, like you say. I don't see these situations as similar because I don't think these two hate each other.
And honestly, I don't think, despite all the consternation we saw last year from the fans, I don't think Michkov and Torts hated each other either.
No.
I think the funny part, and this will be a good segue into talking about like the social media of it all, but the funny part about Michkov is that I think Michkov can handle criticism of Michkov a lot better than Michkov's fans can handle criticism of Michkov.
100.
Like I think he likes the tough love. And that's what makes it funny when people lose their minds when Michkov is criticized, because I think Michkov kind of appreciates it.
I don't think Mish liked not playing last year because I think the only thing he likes to do is play hockey.
He was livid when he got scratched.
I think he likes to play hockey and party in Dubai. That's what I know about Matvei Michkov through the 2 years that we've gotten to know him. Basically, I think he likes those two things.
I doubt I'll ever visit Dubai, but I've heard it's a lot of fun to party. Seems like a lot of fun place to party.
I'm not a millionaire. I don't think I'll ever get to party there. But
unlikely.
Yeah, but it just feels like that was the only way to reach him. But the sniping on the bench, John Tortorella was even I like when guys give it back to me. Yeah. I might snap back at them in the moment because I'm mad too, but it doesn't, that's not a reason I'm going to that's not a grudge I'm going to carry.
I think Michkov liked Torts. And I think when Coots says these things, I don't necessarily think Michkov is taking it poorly.
I think the whole Sochi situation, what made maybe, and Matvei Michkov's a teenager, he probably didn't express himself in the smartest way. When I'm mad, I don't always say the right thing. My wife knows this. And I'm 37. I am double Michkov's age, almost. I just think a lot of that was these guys don't care. And so when I snap at them, they're not ready to come back.
I absolutely think that's part
of it.
They're
just go F yourself, kid.
Yeah.
And he's I'm the only one trying out here.
I'm the only one who wants to win.
Yeah. And no one likes hearing that.
Yeah.
So they're all just kind of separate situations in my mind, but to your thing too.
Yeah. So now I want to get into the social media of it all. Let's get into the social media.
Let's do our break, and then because I realize we have another one, and that's going to be a 20-minute conversation.
Okay.
All right, one more break, I promise. Whether your favorite team wins or not, there's always another way to win on the BetParx online casino app. They have such a great selection of slots. They have Huff and More Puff, Cash Eruption, 88 Fortunes, slots based on your favorite streaming shows like Walking Dead, Squid Game, nostalgic favorites like The Goonies, and all of your casino favorites like Blackjack, Roulette, Craps, Poker, Baccarat. You can make your downtime some fun time and maybe even some profitable time at the BetParx online casino app. And right now is the time to get in because new users get up to $1,000 casino bonus back. If you're down in the first 24 hours, all you got to do, go to betparx.com and download the app right now and enjoy all the action and excitement from the casino at your fingertips. Must be 21 and in PA, Jersey, Maryland, or Michigan for BetParx. You love to play. You play to win. You bet. BetParx. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. And while we are here, I have to tell you all about our friends at Signal Hill surveys because we have a great survey for you to take and a chance to win a $100 Amazon gift card. We love our PHLY community. We're always looking for ways to make better content for you and understand what you, our listeners and viewers, value most. That's why we've launched this quick survey. Your feedback will help shape the content you love here and make it even better. All you have to do, take a couple of minutes, go to allphly.com/survey or scan that QR code right on the screen. Take the survey, and respondents will have a chance to win a $100 Amazon gift card. We appreciate you, and we're trying to find out how to be even better. Help us out. Take that survey. Be entered to win the gift card. It's all good. All right, Charlie.
All right. The reason why I think this has to be discussed is because I think we both agree that this thing was overblown. that
even if there's some actual issues, it is not this.
I wouldn't
big
even
a deal.
say issues. I would just say that there are some things that probably it would be great if Michkov was like a little bit more in the crew than he has been to this point. It would be great if he was getting more ice time. It would be great if he came to camp in slightly better condition. All these things are real, but I do think overall it's overblown. That said, if we're going to talk about why it got overblown, you kind of have to go into the environment in which it was created. And I really think it's coming from three places. And I'm going to go through each of them. Start with number one, which is, and again, I want to make sure that I'm positioning this not as like finger pointing, finger wagging, like you dumb kids. Number one, people on social media in particular are very, very protective of Matvei Michkov. They are. Like, people love this kid. And I get it. It was real bad in Flyers world for a few years before this kid came and brought people hope.
This speaks to one of your other points. People like Michkov better than the team.
Yeah.
Because the team makes them mad and Matvei Michkov doesn't.
Yeah. And I think also there's an element too, and this is something I did want to have a conversation with you about, because I think this is a real shift in the way, particularly the way that younger fans are doing their sports fandom. It hasn't been as big of a deal in hockey. It's certainly been a bigger deal in like basketball and football, but I think it may be coming into hockey a little bit, especially in this unique situation. There is a shift in that fans are rooting more for players than they are for teams. I think that is a real change. You're seeing more, like you see it in basketball with with Steph Curry, where it's like, well, I'm not really a Golden State Warriors fan. I'm a Steph Curry fan. I'm not a Cleveland Cavaliers fan. I'm a LeBron James fan. And now that he's on the Lakers, I'm a Lakers fan because he's on that team. And I do think that maybe that might be playing into this a little bit, is that, look, if it's Michkov versus anyone, a lot of people are just going to reflexively side with Michkov.
No, that is very much a new thing. I feel like I hear Gargano talk about it, like with his kids, the ultimate Philly sports guy. And it's like they grew up, part of the scene, but also in a world where kids kind of root because you have such access to everybody. Like I always said, like the reason all-star games kind of are going the way of the dodo bird, is like, Mike Trout's not a myth the way Reggie Jackson was. Like, you don't have to like travel to Oakland to see this guy play. You can just open up your phone and be like, oh, look, I saw his game. I saw all his highlights. I know who this guy is. I am a fan of his. And so like, it's not this major attraction anymore. But with that comes, I can just like turn on a Ducks game, see Leo Carlsson. I'm a Leo Carlsson fan. Like, we saw it with the Ducks. Oh, all these Ducks fans are suddenly, like, buying Zegras jerseys. No, they're Trevor Zegras fans. Like, we saw a big influx of those people.
Yeah, sure, we did.
Like, that's just kind of the trend now. That's the way things are in terms of watching sports.
Yeah, so I think that's probably part of it. Also, if we're talking about the social media world as a whole, if you spend a lot of time on social media, you can start to think that like that is the whole world. That is the entirety of fandom. And I feel like a lot of the really, really big Michkov fans, the people who like are ride or die Michkov or nothing, they spend a lot of time on social media constantly fighting with fans of the Flyers who are criticizing Michkov, and they're firing back at them because they're defending their guy. And it's wild that this is as big of a deal as it is, but there's a lot of people who spend a lot of time on social media going back and forth with Montreal fans about this Michkov thing. And I think it's kind of created people they get in the habit of like, well, I'm just reflexively defending Michkov for anything. Like whatever you're saying about Michkov, you're wrong because he's great. And that, I think, played into this where, like, you're seeing Couturier say, and it's like, well, obviously he's wrong because he's saying things that I've been yelling at Montreal fans for criticizing Michkov for the past year and a half. And if they're wrong, then he's wrong too.
And that leads us to number two, Couturier hate. There's just a lot of people who don't like Sean Couturier. I think some of the reasons are somewhat valid. He does, even though with the cap going up, have a large contract that lasts until 2029-30. That's a long freaking time. Like, that's the same amount of time that Noah Cates is signed for instance. So, like, I get it. That is annoying. The fact that he's nowhere near the player he used to be, that is annoying. The fact that he kind of just represents an era of Flyers hockey that left us all mad. I get it. Like, I don't feel that way about Sean Couturier.
I don't either.
I look at Sean Couturier as that dude gave me 3 goals and 2 assists on a torn MCL in an elimination game against effing Sidney Crosby. He's an awesome player who now is on the downside because of injuries, but still
and
useful.
Age.
Yeah, age.
Just
At this
age.
point, yeah, just age and injuries, and still useful. Not that guy, but I think he is a good leader. I think he is a good bridge, but I get why people are reflexively anti-Coots just because of, like, that era sucked, man. I was doing this show through all of it. It wasn't a ton of fun to talk about this team other than, like, the jokes we made with each other. You know, like, I fully understand a diehard fan of this team is like, man, I just want every remnant of that era gone. I get it.
And when I said earlier in the show that I do think there was some bad faith rabble-rousing.
And that exists.
I think this is what I'm talking about. That I think that there are people who seem to think that if they rabble-rouse enough around Sean Couturier, that they will create a groundswell that will result in him no longer being on their hockey team. And that this was a way for it to be like, ooh, Couturier has an opening where we can crap on him and then try to create a controversy, and then maybe this will make the Flyers finally get rid of this bum. That I do think was part of it, because there are some people on social media who I legitimately do think that low of on Flyers Twitter, that I do think that was like a driving force of it. And that I have no time for, because honestly, like, if you hate Sean Couturier, like, get a life, man.
I just, like, what is the solution? You can't buy him out. You save nothing. You save like $100,000 or something, whatever league minimum is, $750K or whatever. That's what you save in a buyout, and plus then it extends double the length of the contract. You can't trade him because no one's trading for that contract. He's got a no move. You can't send him to the AHL. I don't know what the solution is other than, like, get over it. That's just me. And then there's the just general Flyers frustration.
And this, I think, is fair.
It's fair again.
This is completely fair.
It is a team that pisses us off. It pisses us off regularly. There's a reason so many people watch a show about a team that's been irrelevant for a decade. It's because we love them and they make us mad.
Yeah, I think that, and maybe this is my disconnect from, because I've definitely pulled back from
You're
Twitter.
not the fan that you were.
I'm not, well, not even a fan. I'm just saying I spend less time on Twitter than I used to. And I think I got my impression of the fan base as a whole, and I think I'm right on this, I think the fan base as a whole is less angry than they were 3-4 years ago.
Yes.
I think more people are willing to cut Danny Briere and Keith Jones and the Flyers organization a fair amount of slack. I think that is real. But I don't think that's real on Twitter.
No.
I think that the people that are left on Twitter, because there have been a lot of people that have left Twitter, I think the people that are left on Twitter are definitely the most discontented. And they are not going to be willing to cut the Flyers much slack. And they are going to basically assume the worst. And in the end, and we talked about it on this show, kind of for the Flyers, it's kind of like you reap what you sow. You were bad for a really long time, and you're going to win over some people by, putting on a nicer face and admitting you have to rebuild and not treating season ticket holders as bad. But some people, they're just not going to cut you any slack until you make the playoffs and win a lot of games. And you know what? If that's the way you want to fan, that's fair.
That's fine. I think that is totally fair. Like, there might be fans who, like, this team could lose in the Eastern Conference Final, and they're, like, not good enough. And you know what? It's been so long. I get it. Fully understand. Like, 50 years for a cup. They haven't been to a conference final since 2010.
I get it.
Like, understandable.
I don't share it, and I find it a little bit, like, not off-putting, but just surprising. Like, when I get reminders of, like, oh man, the people on Twitter really are still this mad. But this weekend was a reminder that, like, oh yeah, they are still this mad.
All right, let's hit super chats. We're gonna have to cue overtime and then get out of here. Let's start. I really wonder what the reaction to our show is here. I'm looking forward to the super chats. All right, from DA Flyers man, I've scarcely ever been happier that I don't Twitter. My sympathies to Charlie. Listen, in terms of, like, I always say we're not digging ditches. You know,
it's not that bad.
It's not that bad, but it is a different place than it was a few years ago. That's all I will say about that. And also, we're going to overtime. Hey. Go to allphly.com to keep watching. All right. Yeah, it's just, I do think there is, like, a difference between one, all the social media platforms, and then individual social media platforms and the people who are on there. Like, I just think the tone of each one is a little different. Twitter was so big for so long, especially for sports. Flyers Twitter was a big deal. There are just fewer people there now. Like, I'm there. It's not the same as it was. All right, next one here, our pal Tony Escargot. What'd you think of Tony's shirt, by the way?
What was Tony's shirt?
Chuck Nose Puck? Did
I
you
did
see
not
it?
see this
Oh,
shirt.
it's very funny.
I did
All
not
right.
see this shirt.
Chuck and Bill, as a man of God, Tony prays for you both every night. Chuck, when do you think we'll start hearing about a Michkov extension this year, next year? Never. God save Chuck and Bill. The
Well, they
Michkov
can't start talking about it until July
1st,
1,
he's
yeah.
eligible.
Yeah.
So we'll start hearing about it probably in May.
I'm actually working on an article on, well, not working, I've basically done it, an article on a potential Zegras extension, so that'll probably be out tomorrow morning. Maybe we could talk about that on tomorrow's show.
Yeah, we could. All right, and thank you, Tony. From Tom Watson, there we go. Fun story, Bill. I moved to Vancouver from Scotland. I work as a server, and a table were surprised that I was a Flyers fan from Scotland. The guy was like, my son played for the Flyers. It was Jordan Wheel's dad. The Wheels did a fair amount of traveling, I feel like. Did they come to Vegas?
Yes, I believe
Were they like on the trip with us?
I think they did come to Vegas. I don't know if they were on the trip, but they definitely tagged along.
Yeah, they were like, I mean, it's the Wheels. They could do whatever they want. Their son's on the team.
Yeah,
but like they were like at our tailgate or pregame party or whatever it was. I feel like they were very cool.
Jordan Wheel was a good guy. I enjoyed covering him. Unfortunately, he never established himself as a, every night NHL player, but he was a good guy to cover.
He had so much skill, man. It was just one of those guys that like,
just
you're a third liner doesn't fit on a third line.
Well, he was small and not an elite skater, and didn't have the kind of skill where you can survive that. Like he wasn't an Alex DeBrincat or Cole Caulfield.
And now look at him. He's doing real well in the KHL.
Sure is.
All right, from Adam S. Adam says, time for massive speculation. Who do we think leaked that Michkov was out of shape to the Chicklets pod? Was it Coots?
I don't know who leaked it to them. I mean, look, we know that the Spin Chicklets guys are
Kevin Hayes' fingerprints are all over this.
Oh my God. But we know
he's not on the team anymore. It couldn't have been him.
We know that the Chicklets guys are buddies with a lot of people in the NHL. It may not have even, let me put it this way, it may not have even been a Flyers player.
Yeah.
It may have been, let's say a Flyers player, was shooting the crap with one of his friends on another team and was like, this kid, he showed up to camp out of shape. And then that guy tells the Spittin' Chicklets guys.
What Petey said to me, and he doesn't know if this is what happened in Philly or not, but he has been around for the weigh-ins and everything, and when the guys show up to camp, and if suddenly it's like, not everyone put in the work this summer, Tocchet starts writing the weights up on the board. He's just like, I don't know, you didn't do the work for your team. Maybe we don't know if that's what happened. Petey obviously isn't in the Flyers dressing room, but any number of things could have happened for that to get out. Who the hell knows? Maybe
it may have been a player. Hell, it may have been somebody in the front office. It may have been a player on another team. There are so many possibilities.
The fact that it got out, it could have been someone in the front office. We're kind of frustrated with the kid.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah. All right. From JH. JH says the Twitter rage thread really grew legs.
Well,
there is also
so here's my thing though. I would have on Sunday morning, I was willing to just kind of be like, oh, this is like a social media thing, whatever. It didn't seem that big of a deal. Now it's being it
was on DFO today.
I got DMs from 3 other journalists late last night being like, so what's the deal with this Michkov Couturier thing? This became a thing because it was talked about so much on Twitter. And at that point, this isn't us fueling the fire.
Yeah.
This is us talking about it because we have to.
Trust me, I'd much rather yo man, what's that neutral zone forecheck, Charlie? But I'd much rather get viewers and have a job. This is kind of what it is.
This became a thing.
But there have been people in town who have reached out, people who don't necessarily at other outlets on air in print talk about the Flyers all that much. And suddenly it's yo, is this something I need to pay attention to?
Exactly.
I'm well,
I guess we got to talk about it.
I guess if it's reaching the mainstream, I suppose we need to talk about it. All right. From David Shub. There are plenty of players to actually be annoyed with in that aren't the two-way center and 20-year-old rookie. Got to hold Tip and other vets more accountable. And I do think that is a fair part of this. All right, guys who aren't scoring and don't really do other things when they're not, I'm fine holding Michkov to that standard, but I would like other guys held to that standard as well.
And that is something I do want to talk about just a little bit from a media standpoint, because and I think I mentioned this in like a Twitter thread today, but it was like not a thread to everyone, but like a mentions thread.
Yeah.
The one thing about this you have to understand is like, because people are like, well, why isn't Couturier criticizing Owen Tippett?
Because it wasn't asked.
And that's the thing. And the reason why is because, like, look, obviously these guys are going to be asked more questions about Matvei Michkov because he's an extremely important part of the team, maybe the most important part of the long-term future. So they're going to naturally get more questions about Matvei Michkov struggling, as opposed to, why Owen Tippett is having a bad 2 weeks. Now, maybe that's a media failing. Maybe we should be asking Sean Couturier, so what do you think about Owen Tippett? What happened to his game? And maybe Sean Couturier would say the exact same thing about Owen Tippett. But the reality is that we only have so many questions we can ask. We only have so much time and availability. And the current status of Matvei Michkov, especially after he has a big game like he had on Saturday, is obviously going to be more front and center of our minds, as opposed to like people frustrated with Owen Tippett.
And that's just
the
like,
reality.
I do think it's a little chicken and the egg, and we and all outlets might be better at this, but the reality of the situation is, if I put Matvei Michkov and I put Owen Tippett in a headline, one show's going to get more watches than the other. Like, that's just true. And like, that's like how we keep the lights on. So this is all media. Yes, we may be able to do a better job, but the fans do kind of get the shows that they want. Somewhat. All right. From Aviator, fans are mad how the media / Flyers refuse to criticize Coots but don't protect Mish. If this team wants to contend for a cup, they need to develop. And
they do need to develop Mish.
Yeah, but they are.
Yeah, and also like Couturier's been playing pretty well this year.
And like he was drafted in 2011 or 2012. Yeah, 2011. Some guys just have more money in the bank. Like, what do you want to criticize Coots about? The thing about Coots is he is what he is.
Yeah.
Like, if you're looking for 70-point Selke Couturier, that's gone.
Probably.
It doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah, unfortunately.
It's just what accountability do you want him held to?
But again, and this goes
and
back.
ask Michkov what he thinks of Couturier. Like, that's the I don't know. Yeah. It wasn't asked.
And this goes back also to my point about like people being bigger Michkov fans than they are Flyers fans. I feel like people who are like Flyers fans and been Flyers fans for decades and decades and decades probably feel, I don't want to say this like overarching, because I'm sure there are exceptions, but like I feel like Flyers fans who are Flyers fans and that's all they are probably feel better about Sean Couturier than someone who is like primarily a Michkov fan. Because Sean Couturier's role is simply how does he play in the story of Matvei Michkov, as opposed to like, yeah, there's this guy who like literally won a friggin' individual trophy for the team, played through multiple injuries to score a hat trick in a playoff game, and scored many important goals. Yeah, the guy's gonna get a little bit of slack cut. He is.
It's just, that's what happens when you're a 15-year vet.
Yeah.
Like, that's...
He is.
All right. Next one here from CB123. Maybe Mish did way too much gym instead of skating.
And maybe, I don't...
Maybe that's how he hurt his ankle. We don't know.
I don't know what his training was. I actually specifically asked Michkov at the start of camp, hey, what'd you do for training? And he basically was like, yeah, I'm not telling you. Which, like, fair. He doesn't have to. But, like, I don't know what he did for training. Maybe he did overtrain in the gym and didn't skate, and that's why things came out. All I can tell you is that I've heard from enough reputable sources to be confident that regardless of how it happened, he wasn't in ideal game shape to start the year.
All right. Next one here from Lewis P. Says, first of all, it was an absolute pleasure meeting you last year in Montreal. As a Flyers fan in Montreal, I wanted to tell Charlie that crazy Flyers-obsessed Habs fans are not limited to social media.
Well, I'm sure.
No.
It's just when I can't understand them.
Yeah, that's the...
It doesn't matter.
Speak French. Yeah, they don't exist. I don't know what the hell they're saying. Hola. Like, yeah. That's Spanish.
Wrong language, bud.
From JH. What is it? What would be hello in French?
Bonjour.
Oh yeah, that sounds. I gotta get muzzy, I guess.
Incredible.
From JH, boo les habitants, boo. Yes, I do think there is some like, the Flyers are making me look bad for all these arguments I've been making.
Part of it. Yeah.
I'm just doing all this to stick up for your guy, and you're not helping me. I do think there's some of that.
There's some of that. Yeah, I do.
Meanwhile, the Habs are like, yeah, he's a bad guy. He's a cancer. Actually,
we were right all along.
Demidov's better.
Yeah.
Reinbacher's better. Suck it. Like, Okay, thanks. Thanks for all your help, Flyers. All right, from DA Flyers, man, I love me some Sean Couturier.
And some people don't.
A lot don't.
don't.
There are
Or
reasons that I understand, and there are reasons that I think are just unfair and over the top.
Do a lot of people, or is it just a few very vocal people on social media?
I have no idea. I have no way of knowing
I
that.
suspect that if you polled the entirety of the Flyers fandom, outside of social media, inside social media, everybody, I think Sean Couturier would probably have a pretty high approval rating.
We need to get the season ticket holders mailing list, somehow steal that from the Flyers and conduct these surveys. All right, from Aviator, Charlie defends Coots like fans online do with Michkov. Why is Coots absolved of any criticism? I'm a fan of you, but you do the same as online fans.
I mean, look, I think I've been critical of Couturier, but yeah, I like Couturier. I like him as a player. I've liked him as a player for a long time. But when he was struggling, sure, be like, yeah, he's struggling.
Yeah, I just think like Coots is what he is, and like expecting more is silly. Like everyone's held to a different standard. We want Michkov to be a superstar. So when he doesn't live up to that, well, we have to criticize it. Sean Couturier is what he is.
And I also don't think we've been that critical of Matvei Michkov.
No, it's just like he wasn't playing well.
He wasn't playing well.
He's playing better now.
And now, hopefully, he's turning the corner and he's going to play great. Like, at no point have I ever been like, I'm worried about Matvei Michkov's long-term future. I still think he's going to be a superstar, and I still think he has a great work ethic. It's just... It just did the wrong stuff this summer.
Sean Couturier is slow. There's nothing that can be done about that. He was the day they drafted him, and now he's 34 years old.
Is he 34?
32?
He's 32. 32 going on 33, I think.
Something like
that.
All right. From Dan Knightley. Well done, you two. Charlie made a respectable case while not totally ignoring the other Miss You Hanks. I wish we had Kelly today.
Yeah, that would have been
perfect
nice.
Show for Kelly. Maybe tomorrow. She will be here for pre and post Wednesday, but she has other responsibilities. All right. From JH. Much love for Brenna. Background laughs. It does. It's very helpful. If you ever listen, like you ever see like a clip of Friends where they take out the laugh track,
sure, it's terrible.
It's very awkward.
Yeah.
Because like it's much easier to move forward when I get the background laughs from Bryn. All right, from Versa J, is that what that says?
Yeah, it's Versa J.
What are your guys' impressions of Couturier's reaction on the bench in overtime after the offsides? I think a lot of people were connecting the two.
Clearly, a lot of people were connecting the two.
A lot of people obviously connected the two. I think one is an obvious like in the heat of the game thing, and the other is a separate thing.
Yeah.
Like, I just think I hadn't fully I remembered the bench thing, but no one reacted to the goal the way they wanted. You connecting all of it in terms of explaining the reaction make a lot more sense to me.
Yeah, there were a lot of things in a brief period that had people being like, "Uh-oh, there's a lot of smoke here." Look, as I said, do I think there might be a little bit of grumbling within the team about Michkov? Yeah, maybe a little, but I don't think it's anywhere near a major issue.
All right, and finally from Linden49, still can't forgive Leon Stickle.
Thanks, Linden.
Yeah, that's. I feel like we just talked about that recently, but all right, that is all the time we have for you on PHLY Flyers today. Thank you all for listening. Thanks for hanging out. If you haven't already, hit that like button. We are over 200, which is the goal every day. Look at that. Oh, the media blows this stuff up. It's like, well, y'all tuned in. Thank you. Thank you all for listening. Thank you for hanging out. Hit the subscribe button. Hit the like button. Follow us on Twitter at PHLY_Flyers and follow the podcast. Just search PHLY Flyers. I am Bill Matz. That's Charlie O'Connor. Thanks again to Brenna. Be excellent to each other.
We all see